Hello and welcome to Coffee Lovers TV. On the show today, I'm going to be doing an unboxing and first time brewing of this Stagg pour over dripper. This is made by Fellow. They make a really beautiful kettle. I believe the kettle was their first product, and then they came out with this dripper. My apologies if I have that backwards. They're based out of San Francisco. I ran into them at the SCA Global Coffee Expo and got to try some coffee on this. It's a pretty nice product, so I'm looking forward to taking it out and brewing it myself. I haven't actually brewed with it yet. I have seen it, of course, and had coffee from it, so I have an idea of what I'm going to end up with. Now, just as reference, I usually brew, or I have been on the Kalita, so this will be kind of like my point of reference. I think it's the closest comparison. They both have a flat bottom. They both have a technically a restricted flow. The Kalita has 3 holes in the bottom, so that means that the coffee can only flow through the brewer as fast as that allows, as fast as that and the filter allows. And the same goes for the Stagg. The Stagg has more holes in the bottom, but it still has a specific set amount of drainage. It'll be interesting to see what the results are. Let's see. So I've got the brewer here, and I think it comes with some filters, but I also got another set of filters as well. It'll be a little bit of an interesting test here. So I know they told me that they're actually changing their filters. It sounded like one of the biggest challenges in creating this product for them has actually been figuring out the filters, figuring out the paperweight, thickness, style, everything like that. What I'm going to be brewing on today is what's going to be the old style filter before too long. When they come out with a new filter, I'll do an updated video with a new filter and maybe a comparison just to see how it is. But for now, this is going to be more about just unboxing this and doing some brews on it. Well, that's kind of cute. So they got this little quick and easy guide to get started right in the box. One thing which I'll point out on here is that they have on the brewer, and if you get you can see in the picture here, they do have this nice glass carafe. I don't have that, but that's part of, if you get their whole thing, you can get that. The brewer itself and the carafe come with some marks. There's like these marks here that basically guide you in how much coffee and water to have in the system. I always go by weight, so I'm just going to be using a scale and not using that. But it's fun to see that they have some kind of system on here for people who just brew by volume or eyeball it or what have you. Otherwise, it looks like it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to get the dripper. I'm going to be using the Kalita carafe to brew onto, just because that's easy enough. The way this is set up, you can put it on a mug too, which we're going to see in a moment. But let's go ahead and finish opening. Some nice packaging. Comes with comes with what's on the box as well. So all those guidelines and some safety stuff. I believe. Let me take a look here. Yeah. So they talk about wetting the filter, I think. Yeah. So they have a prep the dripper step, which is put the filter in, wet the filter to warm the filter in the dripper, and then empty that out. That's something I don't do with the Kalita, but it sounds like these particular filters want to be rinsed. So here it is, just the brewer, the Stagg X pour over dripper. This is the smaller version. I think there's a larger dripper version. So I'm just going to set that aside here. Now I do have to say this is a really nice design, really solidly built, nice materials, feels good in the hands, and here's the dripper, and this is their fun little drip tray that it comes with. So after you finish, you can just plop that on there and then not make a mess. That is pretty cool, actually. I do have to say, as someone who lives in a small space, this is a nice system. I think if we were to count the glass carafe, I mean, this is essentially comparable to this, which also works for me. and you also want something to brew with it. But this is pretty sturdy. I could also have a metal Kalita, but I don't. I think they only make these in this metal format, and the reason for that is it's a little hard to tell, but there's a very thick wall here, and that's because this is vacuum insulated brewer. Kind of does this here, but the wall on the inside goes all the way down to the dripper at the bottom. So there's a pretty thick layer of air, basically. And the reason for this is to keep the temperature in the brewer consistent. I think their goal is to battle heat loss during the brew. The idea being that the more consistent the brew temperature, the more consistent your coffee brew is, and the better your flavor is you're going to get out of it. It's interesting to me seeing that with the waved filters, because the idea, and just as a comparison, here are the Kalita filters. So Kalita filter, Stagg filter. Now the reason for the wave design on the Kalita is to separate your brew from the wall of the brewer for that very reason, to limit contact, to limit heat exchange, and to improve airflow on the sides and give more space for the coffee to expand, all these things that aid in extraction. So that's what this is going to contribute to as well. I've never actually measured the temperature in the Kalita, so I don't know how that works out. I would imagine that if there is any heat loss, this will minimize it even further. So, but I'm just going to pull one of these filters apart. It does feel like much thicker paper than the Kalita filter. The person who was sharing the brewer with me was describing it as like a combination between a Chemex and a Wave. Whereas the Chemex has much thicker filters. The Stagg has thicker paper filters as well. And these are pretty, I mean, it's going to be difficult for me to show on the video, but I can tell you that these feel pretty thicker than the Kalita filters. And that would explain why they want them rinsed. The Kalita Wave filters don't really need to be rinsed. They're really thin. They don't really impart a paper taste, but it doesn't really have an aroma. But we're gonna follow all their steps. I just want to finish looking at the brewer before I get to actually brewing. Just for demonstration's sake, the idea is, yeah, that works just fine. There's a nice little gasket here, so you can sit it on glass, no problem, and it's not gonna shift around. I could also put this on a mug as well, but for showman's sake, we're going to put it on the glass carafe. And then, oh, that's right. So this, the drip tray that came with this brewer also contains, you'll find this nice little cone here, which stores nicely in here, and then can be used to make sure that when you're adding the grounds, all the grounds end up in the filter and not around the sides, where they will then probably end up in your brew. One thing we'll notice about the construction of this dripper is that it's pretty steep. They say that's an 80-degree angle, and I mean, you can tell that the filter is pretty tall and narrow. So we're gonna essentially get a column of brew, and they say this increases the contact between the water and the grounds. That's fine. I'll just be concerned with how it tastes in the end. I mean, we'll compare how this tastes with how that tastes. I won't be able to tell you if the differences are due to the shape of the brewer. Maybe, I mean, if anything, I think a thicker filter is going to have the most impact. This looks like it probably extracts coffee similar to the Wave. So the Kalita has 3 holes, this one has 10 holes. There are also these kind of, a little hard to tell maybe on the camera, but there are these ridges on the bottom, and that's just gonna keep the filter raised. So, I mean, seems reasonable enough. Keep it from kind of sealing. This would be if they didn't have those ridges there, those bumps in the bottom, this would be a really flat flat bottom. The Kalita doesn't have the ridges, but it solves that problem by having a bump. I don't know if I can show that here. Probably really hard to tell on the camera, but the bottom of this is not completely flat. There's a bit of a raised bump in the center that keeps the filter from sealing with the bottom, and then you'd have a really hard time with water flow. So that's the Stagg brewer. We're just gonna add some grounds and brew and see what happens. I'm gonna go with the standard 16:1 ratio. I'm probably gonna use about 20 grams of coffee, 20 grams of ground coffee. I don't know how much I should use here. I wonder if the directions indicate. Yeah, actually the directions suggest for a single cup 20. Says I can go up to 40 grams. That's interesting. I don't know if that's true for this brewer. This they have two sizes of brewer. This is the smaller one. I can't really brew 40 grams in here. I mean, I guess I could try, but it always seems like 34 is pushing it. 34 grams of coffee in the Kalita Wave gives me 500 grams, or about 520 or 30 grams of coffee, and I can't really fit any more than that in here. I'm guessing this brewer's sweet spot is 20 grams. So it says that here where it indicates the dots, and I'm going to show you the dots in a second on the brewer. So for a single cup, you do 20 grams of coffee and 10 ounces of water, and that fills up to the single dot. Now, where's the dots? So the dots are in here. I think the idea is if you have nothing else to measure with, they're actually on both sides. If you have nothing else to measure with, you can fill grounds up to the first dot or the second, or the second to two dots right there. And that'll be about how much ground coffee you want to fit in here. So that's supposed to be 20 and 40 is the second level. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe 40 grams would be fine in here. For today, I'm just gonna brew 20 grams. I just wanna see what the coffee's like on here. The coffee I'm using for this today is something I've just been brewing lately in the morning. It's Conduit's Spring Blossom Blend. It's got some good fruit, it's got some good chocolate, extracts to something really rich in the Kalita, and I think that I'm gonna get a very different result in the Stagg. My experience with drinking coffee on the Stagg is that it ends up just, I don't know if cleaner is the right word, but it definitely is like a bit crisper, maybe a bit simpler, maybe a bit smoother. I don't know, I haven't done a side-by-side coffee comparison like this yet. So I had this just a little bit ago on the Kalita Wave, so my mind is fresh to what this tastes like on there, and I think I'll make a good comparison for this first time brewing on the Stagg kettle, or on the Stagg brewer. Now just a remark on the grind. So I decided just to use the same grind size as I would with the Kalita, which is kind of a medium coarseness. This cone thing's kind of nice. So just for your edification, 23 grams going 16:1 means I'm going to brew with 368 grams of water. One thing I am going to do is try to bloom with as little water as possible. It's a little more than 1:1. Now, one thing I am going to do is pour like I would with the Kalita. And what I do with the Kalita is I try to be quite gentle with my pouring. Essentially, I try to minimize disturbance of the grounds as much as possible, just because I think that results in a better brew on the Kalita. So I'm kind of doing the same thing here. I don't know if this would produce a good brew without a kettle like this. I suppose at some point I should try that out just to see what happens. Another thing I'm doing is I'm trying not to go completely to the top of the filter. So one of the things I really like in a brewer is ease of use. That's why I'm so much on the Kalita these days, is because it's add a filter, add the grounds, pour the water, if a little bit carefully, and I consistently get a really good cup of coffee. I think that the Stagg is gonna be able to do just that as well. I mean, it's clearly a well-made brewer. I actually really like the design. I like the compactness of everything. Just as a note, This has been holding really hot water, and yes, there's heat, but I could easily hold this on the sides. I mean, it's not even that hot. It's just warm. So good insulation. I could not do that with the Kalita. Obviously, the Kalita has a handle, but so the drip tray here, nice. Bam. That's the brewer that we just brewed in. Smelling nice and sweet. This also looks like it'd be really easy to clean up afterwards. I mean, you can just like with the Kalita, really simple. Just pull this out, give that a rinse, and then you're probably good to go again. So actually, I really like this compact design. This would actually probably make a pretty sweet travel dripper. If you were so inclined. I could definitely not travel with the Kalita. It's too wide and weirdly shaped. But this, it looks like this kind of, yeah, so this kind of like just becomes this one thing, and then you can shove the filters in there to travel, and you got a really nice dripper. So that's kind of cool. I like well-made things, and that's a well-made, oh. Okay, yes, cleaner is definitely, I think, a word I would use to describe this compared to the Kalita. The Kalita brings out a lot of richness, which I actually like around the edges, but so it's very smooth and crisp in comparison, but I still get the good richness. So this coffee has a lot of like cherry fruit flavors and some good chocolate to it. On the Kalita, that comes off like eating a cherry chocolate bar in many ways, kind of wraps around the tongue. On here, it's smoother, and I would say that it actually comes off a bit sweeter on here too. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I can see the chocolate, it's less wrap around your tongue and more like smooth like butter. And then I can definitely get the cherry in there as well. But yeah, smooth and crisp and good sweetness is like how I would describe this compared to the very same coffee on the Kalita, which I would call more rich and not that this isn't rich, but this like wraps around the tongue a bit more and has a bit more more aggressiveness just around the edges, and this just kind of smooths it out and gives you. I think I need to compare this to the Chemex now to really have a good picture for myself of what this brewer is doing in comparison to others. Because I feel like this coffee on the Chemex would not have the same deep flavors that the Stagg is able to pull out. So in that respect, if the Stagg is a cross between the Kalita and the Chemex, you would get like the deep, sweet, rich flavors, but it'd be smooth and crisp as well. Definitely, I think, a worthy brewer to have in your arsenal, even if you have other brewers. I'm actually going to enjoy brewing on this in addition to the Kalita, I think. It'll be fun to try the coffees in different ways and see if maybe I like one better on one of these versus the other. That's really good. So I said I would talk about things I would change. I'm actually not sure I would change anything about what I did with the brew here. It's got a lot of good flavor. It feels well extracted. I can taste the chocolate. I can taste the cherry. It's got good sweetness. So I'm not sure I would change the grind size at all. I think if there is only a downside to this, at least this particular brewer, is that I'm not sure I could really brew anything more than 20, maybe 24 grams. Well, I guess I did 23 grams in here, so I don't think I would brew more than 23 grams or 24 grams of coffee in this. I'll probably try just to see what happens, but I think it's gonna, there's just gonna end up being too much grounds in this, in the brew chamber. And this, again, is the smaller version. They have a larger version, which I presume will give you the same sort of result. It's the same design, it's just bigger. So if you want to brew more than 400 grams of coffee, which is, I guess that's what is that, like a 10 or 12 ounce mug? So if you want to brew more than that, then this dripper is probably not good for you. But if you're just brewing for yourself, you're brewing small amounts, you're maybe exploring coffee, maybe you want something to travel with even, or you need something compact, well made, I'm pretty pleased with this. So that's my first look, sort of unboxing and brew with the Fellow Stagg X pour over dripper. If you want to pick up one of these for yourself, I've linked in the comments where you can get one. If you're interested in the coffee that I brewed on here, I've also linked to where you can pick up that as well. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe, hit that like button, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any questions about the Fellow Stagg, this particular brewer, let me know. I will almost certainly be doing more videos on this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll do some exploring with this fun dripper.